Stillness. That's the thing nobody talks about because it sounds boring. It sounds like something you'd hear in a yoga class or a corporate wellness seminar. But stillness in trading isn't about breathing exercises or sitting cross-legged. It's about not losing your mind when a trade goes against you. It's about not suddenly becoming a genius when 3 trades work in a row. I know a guy who learned this the hard way. Well, the hardest way, really. He started trading in 2024. By January 2025, he had 3 funded prop firm accounts, $5,000 each. On paper, that sounds like progress, like maybe he figured something out. In reality, he had $1 in his actual bank account. 1. His phone screen was cracked, and the battery lasted maybe 3 hours if he was lucky. He didn't have a place to live. He was squatting, moving around, surviving. His mother was diabetic. She needed care. She needed medication. She needed help. Every trade he took wasn't just numbers on a screen. It was real. It mattered in ways that most traders will never understand, because most traders are playing with money they don't actually need. He wasn't chasing the dream. He wasn't trying to buy a Lambo or quit his job or live on a beach. He was trying not to make things worse. That's it. Just not worse. If you're the type who keeps showing up even when nothing's working, subscribe. You're already here. His girlfriend stayed. I don't know why. There was nothing to stay for. No progress, no timeline, no evidence that any of this was going anywhere except maybe further down. But she stayed anyway. Some people are like that. First quarter of 2025, his mother passed. Diabetes. Trading didn't save her. He didn't make enough money. He didn't have a breakthrough. She died, and he was still broke, and still squatting, and still barely holding it together. Trading didn't save him either. It just didn't destroy him. That's all it did. It held steady when everything else collapsed. And that's when something shifted. Not immediately, not like a light switch, but gradually. Because when you lose the thing you were trying to protect, desperation stops working as a strategy. You can't be desperate for something that's already gone. He made a decision. Feel nothing. Not in a dramatic way, not like he shut down emotionally. Just feel nothing about the trades. No urgency to recover yesterday's loss. No attachment to being right. No need to control outcomes. No emotional investment in money that wasn't his yet. I remember my mentor saying something about this once. She was calm, always calm, but she had this way of delivering truth that was so blunt it almost felt disrespectful. She'd laugh first, then she'd tell you exactly what you didn't want to hear. She told me, "You're not trading, you're reacting, and every time you react, you're making it worse." I didn't want to hear it, but she was right. That's the thing about good mentors. They're annoyingly right. This guy, he stopped reacting. He picked one strategy. Not the best one, not the most exciting one, just one that back-tested at about 60% win rate. 60%. That means 40% of trades lose. That's a lot of losing. But he committed to it, and here's the thing. He committed to not improving it. Most traders can't do that. They get bored. They see something shiny. They have 3 losses in a row and think, maybe this isn't working anymore. They tweak, they optimize, they search. They never actually execute anything long enough to know if it works. He stopped optimizing. He focused on 3 things: execution, journaling, and emotional restraint. That's it. No complicated plan, no vision board. Just those 3 things every day for nearly 2 years. Execution meant if the setup appears and meets every criteria, take it. If it doesn't meet every criteria, don't take it. No exceptions. No close enough. No, I have a good feeling about this one. Rules are rules. Journaling meant after every session, write down where you deviated and why. Not the trade details, the behavior. Did you take a trade that didn't fully qualify? Why? Were you bored, trying to recover a loss? Did you skip a valid setup? Why? Scared? Tired? Doubting the system? Emotional restraint meant when you lose, don't react. When you win, don't react. Just move to the next trade. Treat every trade like it's independent, because it is. Sounds simple, right? Yeah, it's not. You can't practice emotional restraint in theory.
You can't simulate the feeling of losing money you actually need. You can't fake the frustration of missing a winner because you hesitated. You have to experience it and choose not to react, over and over, for months, for years. Growth was slow. It was unremarkable. There were no breakthrough moments, no days where everything clicked, no sudden realizations, just slow, incremental progress that was invisible until enough time passed. It took nearly 2 years before results became visible. 2 years. Most people quit after 2 months, 6 months if they're stubborn. 2 years? That's longer than most relationships, longer than most jobs, longer than most people are willing to commit to anything without clear evidence it's working.
The strategy didn't improve. It was still hitting 60% win rate. Same strategy, same rules, same outcomes. What changed was his behavior. He stopped taking trades that didn't qualify. He stopped skipping trades that did qualify. He stopped moving stops. He stopped taking profits early. He stopped increasing risk after wins. He stopped decreasing risk after losses. He stopped interfering. That's all. That's the whole thing. 2 years of work to learn how to stop getting in his own way. I think about Mark Douglas sometimes, trading in the zone. He talks about this. Each trade is independent. Your brain doesn't want to believe that. Your brain wants patterns. It wants meaning. It wants to connect this trade to the last trade and the next trade. But they're independent, probabilistically independent. Emotionally, though, that's where traders lose. Or Best Loser Wins. That book is about staying in discomfort, about letting trades breathe even when it feels wrong, about not interfering even when every instinct says to do something. Most traders can't sit still. They have to act. They have to feel in control. And that's what destroys them. Drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I know you've done this before. This guy learned to sit still, not because he was disciplined, not because he was strong, because he had already lost everything that mattered. There was nothing left to protect. No reason to interfere, no urgency to control outcomes. And that's when the math started working. The math was always there. 60% win rate, positive expectancy. The edge existed, but you can have an edge and still lose if you can't execute it without emotional interference. That's what most traders don't understand. They're looking for a better strategy when they can't even execute the strategy they have. My mentor told me once, "Your strategy is fine. You're the problem." I hated hearing that, but she was right. She was always right. If you're reading this and you're struggling with consistency, the problem isn't your strategy. It's you. You're taking trades that don't meet your criteria because you're bored or desperate or trying to recover a loss. You're skipping valid setups because you're scared or doubting the system. You're moving stops because you can't tolerate being wrong. You're taking profits early because you're afraid they'll disappear. All of that is emotional interference, and every time you do it, you're sabotaging the math. The solution isn't a better strategy. The solution is becoming a person who can execute without interference. That takes time, probably longer than you want it to take, probably longer than you think is reasonable, but there's no shortcut. James Clear talks about this in Atomic Habits. Small actions repeated. Environment design. Showing up when you don't feel like it. Not because you're motivated, because it's the routine. Trading became this guy's routine. Not an exciting routine, just a routine. Like brushing your teeth. You don't wait to feel motivated to brush your teeth. You just do it. He showed up every day, executed the process, journaled, practiced restraint. For 2 years, no visible progress for most of that time. Just trust that the math would eventually work if he stopped interfering. And it did. Not because he figured something out, not because he unlocked some secret, because he stopped getting in the way. Success in trading isn't about being smart. It's about being consistent. It's about executing the same process over and over without emotional interference. The top 1% aren't there because they have better strategies. They're there because they've become the kind of people who can execute under pressure.
That's the shift. Not better tools, better behavior. This guy didn't overcome impossible odds. He didn't have a miraculous transformation. He just survived long enough to stop interfering with a process that already worked. That's it. That's the whole story. Trading didn't save him. It just stopped being the problem. It became a job he could execute regardless of how he felt. And when you can do that, when you can execute regardless of mood, regardless of recent results, regardless of external pressure, the math works. Not quickly, not dramatically, just eventually. The compound effect, right? Darren Hardy. Small decisions compounded over time. Most people don't have the patience for that. They want immediate results. They want proof. They want evidence that it's working. But the evidence comes late. The results are delayed. You do the work now and see the results later, much later.
Most people can't tolerate that delay, so they quit. They move to the next strategy, the next system, the next approach. And they never stay anywhere long enough for the compounding to work. He stayed, not because he was special, because he had nowhere else to go. And that's the irony. The thing that made him successful was the thing that made his situation desperate. He couldn't quit. He couldn't jump to something else. He had to make this work or accept complete failure. So he stayed. And staying was enough. If you want different results, you need to become a different person. Not a more motivated person, not a more educated person, a person who can execute without interference. That's the shift. That's what separates people who make it from people who don't. My mentor used to say, discipline is just deciding once instead of deciding 1,000 times. Decide once. This is the strategy. These are the rules. I will execute them regardless of how I feel. Then you don't have to decide anymore. You just execute. Every day, for as long as it takes. That's stillness. Not excitement, not confidence, just the ability to execute without internal interference. To feel nothing about individual outcomes while staying committed to the process. The War of Art talks about resistance. Stephen Pressfield. Resistance is the force that stops you from doing the work. It shows up as doubt, fear, boredom, distraction. It's always there. It never goes away. You don't defeat it, you just act despite it. This guy acted despite resistance, every day, for 2 years. Not because he was strong, because he had nowhere else to go. And eventually the resistance stopped mattering. It was still there, it never left, but it stopped controlling his behavior. He could feel scared and take the trade anyway. He could feel confident and not increase his risk. He could feel frustrated and not try to force trades. The feeling was there. The action was independent. That's the goal. Not to stop feeling, to stop letting feelings dictate behavior. Most traders never get there. They keep searching for the perfect system, the perfect indicator, the perfect time frame, the perfect market condition. They keep optimizing, they keep tweaking, they keep searching, and they never stay anywhere long enough to develop the one skill that actually matters: execution without interference. This isn't motivational, this isn't inspirational, this is just what happened. A guy learned to stop interfering. It took 2 years, it was unremarkable, and it worked because the math always worked. He just had to stop breaking it. That's the mindset the top 1% use in 2026. Not genius, not innovation, not secrets, just the ability to execute a simple process consistently without getting in their own way. Subscribe if you're tired of getting in your own way. Or don't. Either way, the work is the same. If you can do that, the math works. If you can't,